Armand, I want to thank you very much for coming tonight. 350 million people out of a global population of 7 billion would be about 4% of the global population. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's more or less 4% of the total population, but it's unique in terms of culture. Indigenous cultures are unique in the world. They are fragile, they are threatened in many ways, and they live on vast tracts of land. That's because of their way of life. They can't just be dwellers in a small city. That's not their way of life, that's not their culture.
Large tracts of land.
Absolutely.
You're talking about huge monetary value
Yeah.
in many situations, and of course that brings about the greed from those who would like to take that over and have that monetary value be in the hands of someone else. Is that a constant thing being fought globally among Indigenous people?
Well, on a daily basis, Indigenous groups, Indigenous peoples are facing critical times in a way that they are facing those huge, major resource development projects on their homeland. And the reason is because those indigenous lands are rich with resources, rich in terms of resources for mining projects, for hydro projects, for forestry projects, and now here in Nagoya, Japan, with genetic resources. So the industry want to have access to those lands with the minimum constraint as possible, with the free access as much as possible, to the expense, to the prejudice of the rights of the indigenous peoples. And that's what we're talking about here in Nagoya, Japan. We want to set up a regime that is much more fair, just for indigenous peoples. But the reality is that the politics here, and money helping as well, resources helping, like from a state's perspective, well, the users, country users, the countries that are using genetic resources, they're way over there. The ones that are providing genetic resources and traditional knowledge, such as developing countries like Brazil and Philippines and others, like Colombia, while they're here, and the indigenous peoples are way below what the framework of this of the camera, they're way below, and because nobody trying to really respect the rights of the indigenous peoples. The states are advocating for their own national self-interest at the expense of the First Peoples or the indigenous peoples.
Are we looking at a situation that there's this unfortunate side to human nature that certain races or certain levels of financial prosperity are going to, historically in the past and in the present and in the future, always discriminate against the local people who've been there for thousands of years? Is that just a state of the world itself?
Well, I guess the reason why the indigenous peoples are marginalized is because that in terms of economics, in terms of politics, it's just the reality of, it's what we call the real politic, you know, of those international and national negotiations. Most of the time we're facing with groups that are disadvantaged. They don't have the clout, they don't have the financial resources, they don't have access to the media, they don't have access to the lawyers, they don't have access to the best economists to do all the tabulation in terms of how much the worth of their lands, territories, and resources. They don't have that, or they don't have the capacity to do the work. They need help, and but of course the financial people, they all have access to wealth that is beyond our imagination as indigenous groups, and then we're facing this. The financial people, well, the industry, they lobby very, very well, you know, to meet with people from the government. We don't see them. We don't hear them talk in those meetings. They just go along, do their business, meet with ministers, meet with people that have influence, meet with all the people that they need to meet to make sure that their interests are protected and their rights are protected at the expense of the most impoverished segment, the most impoverished people in our society.
Hana no e ka